everyone, and welcome back to None Such Farm. Today I want to do, I'm doing my second video today. I wanted to do a video on the difference between water bath canning and pressure canning. Now, you're very limited with water bath canning. Everything that you can needs to have a high acidity level, such as pickles, relishes. You can do applesauce, pie fillings, any kind of fruit, jams, jellies. You can do drinks. I do drinks such as I showed you in an earlier video. I do lilac tea and sumac, lilac lemonade and sumac tea. They have a high sugar content and a high acid content for the lilac tea. So like I said, you are really limited. I know tomatoes, you can can tomatoes. When you start adding things like onions and peppers and garlic and things like other vegetables to your tomatoes, it lowers the acidity of the tomatoes, so you really need to pressure can them. I know a lot of Rebel canners do still water bath can them. I have been known to do that as well. I prefer to pressure can my spaghetti sauces because I do a lot of pints and I can stack pints in my pressure canner. But I'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to talk about water bath canning. So with water bath canning, you'll have a rack. Anytime that you can, you want a rack on the bottom of your canner. They typically come with hooks that you can hook over the side. I take them off because it really cuts down on the room in my canner, so I just take them off. I don't need to pull my jars up to get them out of the water. I can just wait for them to cool and then pull them out with my tongs. When you start canning, let me grab some things that are very essential to use. Of course, you need the canner, you need jars, you need lids. With lids are one-time use only, unless you buy these special lids. Ooh, I can't remember the name of them, but I do have those. And I did find that I could go down in the pantry months after I canned and the jars weren't sealed. So that could be my error. Maybe I didn't can them properly or put the caps on properly, but it just turned me off to them. So I just went back to my regular lids. I do know some people that do reuse lids. I wouldn't recommend it as a new canner. I did try it with bone broth. I figured, you know, the carcass that you made the broth with was free. And I just wanted to try it, and they all sealed. But don't, you know, follow the USDA guidelines if you are new to canning. You don't want to start off Rebel canning if you're new to Rebel canning. Just get the hang of canning first. Learn the basics of canning first. So I have two of these water bath canners. When you water bath can, you put your jars in the water, and then you cover them with the water, bring it to a boil, then start your time. It could be 20 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. Follow the recipe. You should be following a recipe when you do canning, when you start out. So, with water bath canning, I can't stack my pints or even smaller in the water bath canner. There's just not the room. I have water bath canned in my pressure canner. It's taller, and I thought I could stack pints, and it just, you know, I had maybe this much room from the top, and it made such a mess. Water was spewing everywhere when it came up to boil, so I will never do that again. Jelly jars, the jelly small half pints, I might do that, but I won't do pints again. So yeah, when you can, so the USDA is now saying that you do not need to sterilize your jars. So I don't sterilize. I'll take my jars right out of the box, and I will start canning from there. You don't need to heat up your lids and your rings. You can just go right from the box, put your food in, and then can. The thing that you need to know is what you put in your jar. It's the temperature. If you put cold product in your jar, you want the water in here to be cold. You want everything cold. The jar you want to be cold. The contents you want to be cold, and your water you want to be cold. You want it all the same temperature. If you're putting hot stuff in your jar, you want your jars heated up. Before that, all I do is I use my tap water because it gets really hot, and I put hot tap water in my jar for a little bit to heat it up. Maybe like, I don't know, a minute or two. Heats up the jar really quick. I'll put my hot contents in, and then the water in my canner needs to be hot too. So cold, 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 hot, hot, hot. You don't want to put hot contents in a cold jar and then put it in cold water. You'll break your jars. I've done that. And I've put cold jars with cold content in hot water, broke them. So you don't break them every time. You might not break them every time, but it'll happen if you just keep doing that. So just remember, hot contents, hot jar, hot water, cold contents, cold jar, cold water, or lukewarm, whatever. You want the waters and the contents in the jar to be similar in temperature. It doesn't have to be cold or hot, as long as everything is similar. It could be lukewarm. So what you need a pair of tongs. You can actually buy kits. You can buy kits that'll come with tongs. It will come with the magnetic stick that you can grab your lids with, which you don't really need that now because you don't need to heat up your lids anymore. It'll come with a poker to poke down the food to get the air pockets out. It'll come with a measuring stick to measure the distance. Because if you read a recipe, it might say 1/4 inch from the top, 1 inch from the top. I always go 1 inch. I always go this, I don't know if you can see it, this ring right around here, that's 1 inch from the top. And everything I just go with 1 inch from the top. And you definitely need a funnel. Because when you put your contents in, you need the funnel. That's a definite need. But yeah, so water bath canning, it has to be high acidity or high sugar content. So you're really limited. That's why I suggest getting a pressure canner. You can hot water bath in a pressure canner. So get a pressure canner, because I'm going to teach you how to pressure can, and it's not hard. I will say it is scary at first. I kind of forced myself. I really wanted to pressure can, and I said, I'm doing it. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I bought the canners, and I bought 2, and I kind of forced myself to do it. And the first few times it was really scary. I hung out right at the stove, watched everything. It's just a step-by-step process. And once you learn it, it's going to be just like water bath canning, or just, it's going to come second nature to you. So let me get my my pressure canner. So this is the 28 quart Presto. They have so many different canners out there, pressure canners. They have the All-American, which everybody raves about the All-American. It's over $300, and it could be up to $400 now. I don't know, because this is just fine. You don't need to spend that much money. I got this on Amazon. I think I paid like right around $150 for it. Worth its weight in gold. It does have this rubber seal around the top, which you do need to oil like every few times that you can, which is nothing. Take some vegetable oil, olive oil, just drop a couple drops on it and then just rub it around. The reason you do that is because it gives you a tighter seal, and it does make it easier to spin this. I did notice the last time I did I did this like this 2 times ago, and it turns really easy. It's not like steel on steel. So this pressure gauge, if you've seen videos where they say like 10 pounds of pressure or something like that, 12 pounds of pressure, and you got to use certain weights, this came with one weight, and my pressure goes up to 15 before this weight starts rattling. So I really don't go by the pounds of pressure and all of that. I go by the rattle. And that's what you need for pressure canning. So like I said, with this pressure canner, I love it because I can stack pints. I think I can do up to 18 pints in here. I would have to check, because if you get the wide mouth, there's a difference in sizes between the wide mouth and the regular mouth jars. You can fit more regular than you can wide mouth. So if you get this pressure canner, and I will put a link down below, and if I can figure out how to do that, this is all new to me. It will come with one of these racks. This is the rack that they use to keep the glass jars off the very bottom. So it only comes with one, but you need two if you're going to stack. So I would really suggest buying a second rack if you're going to buy a pressure canner, because, you know, that opens up another world for you, doing 2 layers of pints. Where it's just me and my mom, I do a lot of pints of everything. You can just do so much more. Now, this comes with, let me put this gear back on. There's arrows, you're gonna line them up. And I'm not lining them up. Can't see them. Oh, right there. So you line up, there's arrows on here, and then there's arrows here, and you line them up, and it drops down, and then you spin it. That's how you get that started. So what happens is, this is going to, so when you get this water boiling, this little thing right here, should get you up closer. This little thing right here will start spitting out steam. When this comes up to steam, when it starts steaming, you want to time that for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you'll put this weight on top of that. And that was the only thing that really scared me. I thought I was going to get burned because it is sputtering. This little thing right here is spitting water, and it's just making a racket. So it's scary, you know. You got to put your hand there, that steam. You won't get burned. I've done it, you know, slowly. I've like, the first few times I'm like, oh, it's going to get me. You're not going to get burned. So after you put that weight on, your pressure gauge, it's going to go up and up and up to where it needs to be. And then this is going to start wiggling around. And when that starts wiggling around, that's when you set your processing time. Say if you're doing bone broth, it might be 20 minutes for pints. So pints and quarts all have different times. Pints, quarts, the different sizes jars you have is the different size, different times that the recipe will tell you. So you might do 20 minutes for pints, where you might do 30 minutes for quarts. So when this starts bobbling, that's when you set your time. And then when it's done, do not take this off. You have to let this gauge come back down to 0, and this has to drop. And then I would recommend giving it about 10 minutes, even 20, even longer, before you turn this and take the lid off. And I learned this the hard way. First time, I've been canning a long time. I did hand bone broth a couple weeks ago. I made a video of it, and this came down, the pressure dropped to 0. It was all done. It had been done for maybe 5 minutes, but I could still hear it boiling. Your jars will boil for about half hour to an hour, even after this is done and it's ready to open. Oh, I have a customer here, so I'm going to pause this. Okay, so I just had a customer come and get her food. So hopefully I can figure out how to connect the two videos. Okay, so anyways, like I was saying, I had let the pressure come down, and I'd waited like it was probably like 10 minutes, and I took the lid off my my ham bone broth, and I was stepping to the side to lay out a dishcloth, and one of the lids blew off, and bone broth went everywhere. It went all over the ceiling. You can kind of still see some marks up there, even though I did clean it with some Dawn dish soap. And but yeah, and then as I walked by, I had 2 canners that I that I had going. And as I walked by the second one, broth came spewing out of the side of one of the jars. So I very gently put the lids back on, and then I left it. I think I left it until the next morning because it was kind of late at night. But yeah, so my recommendation is when the temperature comes down on your pressure canner and this drops, just leave it. Leave it. You can do it if you're doing it at night, leave it till the next morning. It's going to be fine. These jars will still be hot in the morning, I can guarantee, because they get super hot. That's the thing with pressure canning. The reason that you pressure can, like your meats, I do tons of bone broth, chicken, ham, beef. A pressure canner brings the content up to a much higher temperature, so it will kill the bacteria that's in there. That's why you want to pressure can things that are not acidic. What do I pressure can? Green beans. I pressure can green beans. A lot of people say that you can water bath can them, and I will tell you that's how I used to do it before I really got into canning, because that's how my grandparents did it. That's how my parents did it. It's not USDA approved because they're not acidy. So I do pressure can. I pressure can them now because I only do pints, and I can do a lot more in here. And also, I feel like it's quicker. A lot of people say pressure canning is longer than water bath canning, but when you're canning things you're not supposed to in a water bath canner, you have to can them for hours. And it doesn't take that long with a pressure canner. So I even pressure can things that I don't need to pressure can, just to get the 2 layers. So you can do that. You can pressure can things that you don't have to pressure can. I wouldn't suggest doing pickles, anything like that, because they will get really soggy. But yeah, like if you're doing dilly beans, you can do those in a water bath canner because you have vinegar in there. Let me think, what else do I pressure can? I do love pressure can chicken. I do not like pressure can hamburg. There's a weird flavor to it. It tastes like the insides of ravioli, and I don't like it. A lot of people like it. That's on them. You can do the fixings for soup. You can put your beef or your chicken, your vegetables, layer it up, pour in some chicken stock or some beef stock, put it in the pressure canner, and you have a ready-made soup. It's amazing. Like I said, I make that sweet and sour zucchini I mentioned in the last video. I like to be able to go down in the basement. I have a pantry underneath the kitchen, and grab something that I can just heat up and eat. I do baked beans in the pressure canner. They come out just as good as if I had made them fresh. And I do put bacon in that. Things you can't pressure can, things you can't can. You can't can dairy. I want to go grab, no, I'll wait and talk about that when we do pressure canning. I am going to, okay, so they have it for thickener. I make gravies. I do like to thicken things to can, such as apple pie filling, strawberry rhubarb pie filling. A lot of people use cornstarch. They say not to do that, and I did learn why, because I did use cornstarch for my last bone broth to make a gravy. Before, when I did my sweet and sour zucchini, I use Clear Jel, and that's a thickener, a special thickener specifically for canning. And I figured, so my sister-in-law uses cornstarch, so I figured, yeah, I'm gonna try it. You know, I am a rebel canner, so they tell you not to use it, not because it's gonna get you sick, but because it's, after you can cornstarch, it separates, and where the Clear Jel will still keep everything thickened. And I learned that with my bone broth, because I went down on my shelf and all the cornstarch is settled to the bottom. I mean, if I shake it, I'm sure it's going to thicken up. I hope it doesn't, you know, I haven't opened one yet, but I learned that lesson. So I will be getting some more Clear Jel from Amazon, and I can give you the link to that as well. I'll post that below. And it is a good thing to have, because if you're doing like pie fillings and you want them to be thick, you know, get some Clear Jel and put a little bit in. Now, you don't want them too thick. That's the thing with canning. You can't have anything really thick. Like, say if you grew a ton of squash and you wanted to cook some squash on the stove and make a puree. You can't can that as a puree. You can chunk it. You can cut it in chunks, put it in the jar, put water in the jar, and then can it, because they're in chunks and the heat can get in there. But if it's a puree, that high heat can't get into the middle of that jar, into the content. So that's where bacteria will build up. So you definitely don't want to can anything too thick. But there's ways around that. Like I said, like with the squash, chunk it up. I do potatoes, and I haven't done a video on potatoes yet for my group, but I do want to do one. I usually, every fall, we live in Maine, and Aroostook County is Potato County, and there's a guy that comes down to Waterville with a truck, and he sells 50-pound bags of potatoes for $25. So I always go buy a few, and I canned so many potatoes this year. They say to take the skins off. I didn't take the skins off because they come out fine. I just clean them really well. You know, you definitely want to clean them. And I think they have you take the skins off because of pesticides and things like that. But I leave the skins on because what I use my potatoes for mostly is home fries. They are really good home fries, and my mom loves them. It's quick. You know, I just go grab a jar of potatoes. They do get really starchy. I've even soaked them overnight and drained them and rinsed them. And I still get that starch. And after it's canned and cooled, that starch settles and it forms a really thick gel. So I just dump them in a strainer and rinse them with really hot water until all that starch washes away. And then they're fine. And the first time I ever canned potatoes and I did that, I used them. I didn't take that starch out. I didn't know anything about that. And it was awful. I couldn't, they were boiling. They were boiling in starchy water. I was trying to make home fries and it just didn't work. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much the basics of the difference between water bath canning and pressure canning. I had made this video for my group, and for some reason Facebook deleted it, or it deleted on its own, I don't know. But I think it's important that you know the difference. But if you pressure can, it opens up a whole new world for you. And I have had, in my group, I've had people that after watching some of my videos, they feel comfortable enough to pressure can. So give it a try. It's really worth it. And I will put some videos out there and instruct you how to do it, because it's so simple. So simple. Well, thank you guys for watching. If you can just help me out by subscribing to my channel, hitting the like button, sharing my channel, I would really appreciate it. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.